if you were to go into a relationships and a couple didn't fight, would you think that's a healthy relationship? I know
Wow. Okay.
it's a crazy question, but
It
I
depends.
gotta ask.
It depends.
Hey everybody, this is your leadership coach Glassstein with another message that could take your leadership to the next level. Let's get in it. Today we have Daya Naef on the set. It live today. We're going to be talking about conflict resolution, that is, and we're going to be talking about the good side of conflict resolutions. I mean, we always hear about conflict resolutions in a negative turn. This person having a disagreement with that person. The leader is not right, and we just don't like it. The boss is like this. The boss is a jerk or whatever. But this time we want to shine some light on conflict resolution and kind of pinpoint the good things about conflict resolution. The name itself, conflict, makes us think of something that's aggressive, something that's warlike, something that's that's always bring a negative connotation to what the essence of conflict resolution is. And we have Daya here that's going to kind of school us on what that is and how we can use it more effectively in the workplace, in the family. We're going to be trying to touch on all those different type of subjects. And so without further ado, let me bring my guest in. Let me get there, guys. Hey.
Hi.
Hey there, how you doing?
Good. Good to
Welcome,
see you.
welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm excited for this because I've been looking forward to this for weeks now.
Yeah, me too.
Conflict resolution. I mean, the good side of it. I mean, I didn't know there was such thing as a good conflict resolution until I really went in and started studying it. And I was like, you know what? There is some positivity in conflict resolution, and that's why I kind of was like looking for a person to talk about it, and it just so happens that I had a friend with the expertise. So there, for the audience, that those of us that don't know you, could you give us your short version of your story about yourself?
Sure, absolutely. So I grew up in the construction industry in the South, in Alabama, and later on in life, I went to law school, went to Loyola Law in New Orleans, and ended up practicing construction law for 16 years. And kind of about actually pretty immediately into that, I started realizing that there was a better way to handle things than traditional litigation, trying to work things out, to find out where there's a meeting of the minds, to find out where a team can work more efficiently together, where people that work together a lot can form better partnerships, even as contractors or subcontractors or joint venture partners, to really bring out a good working relationship team where people don't always agree, where people are free to express their, hey, I think you're way off base on this, and let's see where we can agree and where we can clash a little bit healthily to better the project and to come up with a more creative solution. So let's see, and then fast forward to about 3 years ago when I became a professional coach. So mainly practice in the DC area, and now with Zoom, I'm all over the world, which is so exciting, doing both coaching and mediation work. I'm also a FINRA arbitrator, and everything is pretty much online now, and it's very exciting. You get to work with people from other cultures and other areas of the U.S.
When you say work with other cultures,
Mhm.
are you talking about the other continents, North America, I mean, South America, Central America?
Yeah,
Or,
actually, recently I've been on a collaboration team where a lot of people are from Lagos, Nigeria, actually,
oh,
and that's been great. It's been great. We've been brushing up on some skills and talking about some cases that we have to work together and troubleshoot. But of course, cultures in the U.S. can be very different. You can have neighboring states or neighboring neighborhoods, and the cultures be very different and unique. So it's been great. It's been eye opening and getting to see my practices, what I've always been drawn to and what I've studied for all these years and have seen on a smaller level now go to a bigger level. So I'm always welcoming that opportunity.
so are you, because you sound like a person that's living your passion. I just want to get off. It just sounds like that to me. I mean, are you living your passion? I mean, are you one of those people? I mean, those
I'm one of
few.
those people. I am one of those people. I have definitely been blessed, especially over the last few years, to kind of reinvent myself and be able to recreate myself in this way. And I love being an entrepreneur. I love working with other entrepreneurs and then working with people in industries where conflict could actually lead to really good results. So
I,
yeah,
you know,
absolutely. And I know you know me from being a speaker, so I'm very much enjoying getting out and sharing my message as much as possible.
well, you're gonna have some opportunity to share your message today, tonight.
Great.
Well, you know what, I wanted to kind of let the audience know where you've been a little bit before you became an entrepreneur. I know you used to work for Deloitte. Could you just talk little bit about that, your experience at Deloitte? Because I know there's a lot of career orientated uh, self-development junkies on here that would love to hear about your experience. Maybe later they can connect with you on IG to maybe there's some coaching possibilities there.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me correct that. That must have been a typo somewhere. So I was not at Deloitte. Um, no, I think out of our peer group, I think that was Joni that you're thinking of.
Yes, you're right. You're right. I'm
Yeah,
thinking
it's like I
about
know where he
Joni.
got that, and it wasn't quite
I'm
it wasn't quite me. It was the person who was sitting next to me. But other than
yeah. I'm glad you corrected me. Okay, okay.
not a worry,
So
not a
so
worry.
so we so we're good on that. So
Embellishing
for
my
the
resume,
record, she
even
did not work
embellishing.
for Deloitte. I worked for Deloitte, but she didn't. So all right. So let me ask you this. It must have been tough working as in construction, right?
Mhm.
That's where you started. Were you in those little what they call those little vehicles in the
The
construction yard?
the
And
job site
yeah, were you were
trailers.
you were you on the job site?
I have been. I have been. I wasn't usually. I was usually at the main office, which was a typical office.
Okay.
But I would definitely go to job sites as needed. And I had clients that would have me go over there for different meetings, different staff meetings, different design meetings. Certainly, if there was something that was being held up that I thought I could facilitate as well. And if there was a conflict between like say the owner and the architect and the general contractor, I would oftentimes show up and not. It was really kind of funny. I would not be introduced until the end. So if I could facilitate a conversation, that would be great. And then if we were not able to come to a resolution, then it would be. And this person is our general counsel. So it was very interesting to be treated differently in that field. And I always thought of it as an advantage. I was sort of a undercover, I guess, to kind of see what I could figure out and see where we could put things together. But number one, I was very young and I was female in this particular general counsel situation. So
That
actually,
that's what makes it interesting to me. I mean, because you're young, because you're female, you're going in an environment where it's predominantly male, and these, I mean, all testosterone, all go 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 type of dudes, and you're going in there unbeknownst to them, they don't know who you are, but you're going in there to evaluate and to bring a solution to some sort of conflict that's going on. Am I correct?
I don't usually bring it. I try to tease it out. But
Okay.
if it doesn't work out, then yes, with everybody, if everybody's on board for me to interject with a solution, I'm more than happy to do that. And actually, my first job out of law school, I did environmental compliance on an army base, a training military base. So when you think of a young contractor, contract staff person at an army base, it was the same. It was the same thing. I did environmental, so it was you're going to make me adhere to these endangered species policies while I want to really do my war games. And I'm like, yes, sir, that's what I'm here to do. And it's I'm not going to impede your process or interfere with what you're trying to do here. However, I'm in charge of compliance, and these are the regulations, and this is what needs to be done. So I think I got some trial by fire doing that.
You were kind of bold there. I mean, hey, Daya, let me ask you a question, and this is probably an easy question, but I know there was a time that I didn't understand that. When we say conflict resolution, what does that mean? And does it mean the same thing across all industries or across families? Is it the same thing? Is this the same type of resolution, or are there different categories of resolutions?
Oh, that's a great question. And I think it would apply. There's an overarching conflict resolution, conflict management, also peace building. So the similar skills are used from a parent-teacher conference all the way up to people who are talking about warring nations. It's the same concept and it's the same principles, and a lot of times it's even the same process. We go like right out of a procedural step-by-step how we handle things, and it's a lot of times with the facilitator or the mediator or the peace talk negotiator, it's the being that they bring. It's the how do we enroll people in seeing this a different way, if at all possible. And it's kind of the step-by-step that follows that goes in all of those fields. Some of the toughest negotiators are like your 2-year-old child wanting a cookie, and you're like, no, and he's like, oh no, I'm having a cookie, And so you have to think, well, how do we ground, or how do we stand our ground in a way that's calm and peaceful and respectful, whatever tactics that you need to utilize in each situation. So I'm not sure that answers your question entirely.
Are there conflict resolution consultants for families with 2-year-olds that just can't seem to get along? I've never experienced that, so I'm just asking because I'm just curious, because I So there are people that go into families and teach families how to fight properly.
That's a great way to put it. How to fight properly. Exactly. Definitely.
I'm going to put it like that because where I come from Liberty City. I come from the hood. We didn't have conflicts. We had fights. I mean, it was yelling. It was screaming. I mean, so I'm coming from a different space. You let me know if there are people that exist that come into your home and teach you how to fight fairly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a whole group of coaches in the coaching industry called Conflict Certified. I'm a certified conflict coach as well as mediator, and it's basically to take people into any type of organization, including families, to teach them the skills to let them recognize conflict styles. So, for example, you had a very assertive conflict style that you just mentioned, like, hey, let's fight it out. Okay, that is a conflict style, and sometimes you do want to fight. If your child is playing in traffic, you're not going to want to collaborate with them on it. Hey, let's see what the benefits of you getting out of the street before the car comes, Not the time.
No, not the time.
Not the time. You definitely want to be assertive and take control, and I'm the boss, and this is how it's going to be. But in different instances, say you're planning a family reunion or a family picnic, and you want everybody to be part of that process, and you have plenty of time. You could do a collaborative approach. So if you were more wanting to take a backseat and just kind of enjoy and let it go with the flow, and you had another family member that really wanted to take charge with it, and you could be accommodating. You could say, oh, that looks great, and kind of just, if something was strange, like, oh, we should have a rain plan, that would be something you could interject, but it's not assertive. It's not a, hey, you need to do this, and then it's not like collaborative, like, oh, let's brainstorm on that and let's move these and see. So different styles of the conflict resolution and conflict management can be implemented each time, and sort of like adding a vocabulary adds to your cognitive ability and your emotional intelligence. I like to advocate for people doing conflict management training so that they're used to that. They're used to going, hey, you know what I'm doing right now? I'm being very accommodating, and they're getting ready to walk on me, and I think something's going to go awry, or I think we really need to investigate this option further. Let me bring it up. Let me access my assertiveness, or let me grab a teammate and work it out with them so that we can go together, as opposed to just, I avoid conflict, period, that's it. Or somebody who's assertive is like, oh, my way or the highway, that's it. I don't want to hear about any other ideas. So it's definitely an educational process to see where you usually have a strong suit, and to develop a facility with the other types of conflict styles.
Is there a particular, because we go through all these DISC tests, these Myers-Briggs and all this stuff. Is there a certain personality that's more prone to resolving conflicts easier, and as opposed to another a personality that is kind of tough to get them to resolve conflicts in a manageable way?
That's a great question. And I think using the different assessment types, Myers-Briggs actually owns now the Tom Ullman model, which is one of the most widely accepted. It has the 5 conflict modes, and the one that I refer to most often, and that is, I think it's licensed by Myers-Briggs. And you mentioned that DISC also has one. I've done their conflict analysis test as well. Basically, anytime I tell somebody what I do, they send me their test. Hey, take my test. And I'm like, oh, great. And over the years, as I've taken them, my styles have started to graduate. Like my scores in the areas I was lower at, happens where I was higher, have started to neutralize a little bit. So it's definitely working. But yeah, so having that information and applying it. So knowledge is one thing, and then applying it is another. Sort of like in my coaching practice, people always you do assessments, and I don't administer any assessments. If you do have assessments, let's talk about what that actually means to you. So if you come in and tell me you took Myers-Briggs or you took DISC, great. You don't need to send them over. If you want to send them over, fine. If you want to send over your resume, fine. I'd be happy to talk to you about it, about any information, any background information that you want to share with me, as long as we know that is background. And mean that you're 100% married to that personality type or that assessment type for your life. And coming forward to getting or training shows me that you're not married to your past. You're not totally ingrained in the personality that you're in. You want to change. You want to get out of your comfort zone. You want to try something different.
So just like I kind of have this lens, right? And I call it my Carol Dweck lens. And Carol Dweck, she's one of the doctors. She's also a professor, and she kind of promoted the whole concept with fixed mindset, growth mindset, right?
Okay.
And so I kind of put these lenses on every time I'm looking at a certain, when I talk about personalities or whatever, I have these Carol Dweck lenses. So everything filters through this growth or fixed mindset lens, right? And I see what you're saying is that, you know, we can all learn how to deal with conflicts better. It's not something that's fixed, because the reason why I wanted to point that out is because I've spoken to some people, and I've spoken to some people that I work with, and I've spoken to some people in the streets. I do that sometimes, like if I'm at a store or something, I'll just, befriend somebody and just start talking. and
That doesn't surprise me at all, Christine.
and someone told me, they said, well, if I have a, if somebody triggers me, this way, I'm gonna respond that way. I mean, that's just who I am. I mean, I was always like, my mom was like this, and I was like, that's interesting. I was like, so you just think that that's just the way you are? You couldn't learn to become better? I mean, to handle that better? Yeah, maybe, but I'm kind of old, and this is who I am. And I was like, wow, you know. And then I would ask somebody else, and they would, at work or whatever, and they would be like, yeah, there are, I know I could have handled that better. I just need to work at it, and everything. I shouldn't have done it that way. I shouldn't have said that, because I manage people. So so I get the opportunity to call them in the office with no complaints. Be like, hey, you know what? You kind of handled that one wrong there, buddy. And they'll be like, yeah, I know, I should have. And they have a growth mindset, whereas though they understand that they can grow. But I'm trying to say this. I'm trying to say that your work is very, very, very important. I wish I could bottle you up and take you to some of the places that I've been, because there's places, that there's other cultures that don't believe that you can fight fair. They believe that the way they fought in the past, they have to fight like that forever. And that kills the community there. It kills the community. And it's because of education. They don't know any better. And you would think, like, how we live in our worlds, and we live in these nice fancy homes and drive these nice fancy cars, and we think that the whole world is like that. It's like, yeah, they should know better. When they say things that you're like, wow, is that what you believe? So that conflict resolution thing is it's a topic that I take very seriously, and that's why I wanted to make this interview. And this interview will be broadcasted on YouTube, and it's going to be sent out to some groups, community groups, that I wanted.
Great.
I promised them this interview, and this
Oh,
is
that's awesome.
very important. Yeah. So your work is going out there. It's going out there. But let's switch up let's switch up a little bit. Let's talk about conflict resolution in relationships, right?
Ooh.
There are some times where, if let's put it this way. If you were to go into a relationships and a couple didn't fight, would you think that's a healthy relationship? I know.
Wow. Okay.
It's a crazy question, but
It
I
depends.
gotta ask.
It depends. Yes, it depends. It really depends. And I think that question would probably be more for a social worker or a psychologist. But when you do have people that are two of the same, so like if you had two people who were aggressive, well, then they would be fighting a lot, and people would be like, okay, but maybe that's like the way that they communicate. If you have two people that are avoidant or two people that are accommodating, there's not going to be enough to really sustain the relationship. So in Yang principle, it's like, okay, you have to have the fire and ice. It's like you have to have a little bit of drama and ship. Same way with working on teams or working in an employment situation, to be some sort, I don't mean drama like the bad drama, I mean like drama to where there's some chemistry, where someone is bringing up something that can be challenged, and someone is free to challenge something when they see a way that it could be done better or differently. Or they can say, well, we've always done it this way. Well, that's great. Or like, think about like, oh, well, we always had a fax machine, right? So a fax machine is great. We're all machine. Well, no, I think we need to get an e-fax, or we need to get voice over IP, or we get to the next technology level. There's always going to be somebody that says that. And if there's somebody who's just going to avoid that conversation or just acquiesce to it, then when they can't catch up to the technology, their business is going to suffer, or on the same note, like a relationship is going to suffer. So if one person is like, it's time for us to get a bigger apartment, or it's time for us to buy a house and quit spending rent money. If one person is just going to say, oh, no, this is fine, and then the other person always has that dream that they don't feel like they're getting heard, then, they're not fighting. They're not fighting, but they're also not satisfied. They're also not free to bring up what they want. They're not free to assert themselves in the relationship if they can't access that mode.
And that's very powerful, because I think sometimes we have this this illusion that we go into certain relationships, whether that be a intimate relationship or a relationship at work, where there's not supposed to be any conflict. If there is conflict, that means this is not a good, this is not a good environment for me. It's, any type of, there are some times when I deal with I had to deal with a bunch of conflicts, especially when I was coming up in the ranks. And one of the things that I've noticed is that there are some people out there that will try to avoid conflict like the plague. Mm-hmm. They will run away from that. And the question that I have for you is, how do you cultivate a culture? Let's say for myself, I got a team of 25. How do you cultivate a culture that makes people feel comfortable enough to voice their opinion and not be threatened by one another, and just could have conflict, have conflict without having war? How do you do that?
I love your use of the word cultivate, because I could not have said it any better. As a leader, and we use leader and manager sometimes interchangeably. So when they do these studies and these employment surveys, and they do the conflict studies, they come back avoidant. People who are in a merit or a company leadership role come back avoidant. So you're not going to foster or cultivate. But what you said is, to add on to what you said, is this something that you want to proactively do. In team meetings, you want to have games, you want to have projects, you want to have things where people can actually learn to trust her. And you may not get somebody who's way up here and way down there to become best friends. You might not get to where everybody's comfortable doing it all the time, but to bring it into where it is happening and you can see it happening. Certainly is that they're ready to come and talk to you about it as the leader or the manager or the director of the team. I mean, that's a huge step in one direction, or in a positive direction, is to be able to even just to cultivate that relationship with your teammates to you. But another step further would be to cultivate that and foster that community with the team. And again, they don't have to like each other. They don't have to be best friends. They don't have to be whatever, liking each other outside of work. They just need to be free to say, that there's some issues with that idea. Let me show you what I'm seeing. Can I show you what I'm seeing? And then all people like not just backing off and say, hey, you know what, it's not my problem, or this isn't my project. I'm not worried about it. And I don't know if you know the famous case of like the Challenger shuttle explosion. When they went back and did the investigation, they had a lot of conflict avoiders on that team, and of course with a million of different issues with that, but they were tight on time, tight on budget, and people did see things that they otherwise might have brought up if there had been a culture of communication on that team, and it could have not led to that disaster. So, and there's numerous cases where that comes out later. Again, when there's an investigation, it says, no, well, we had a team and these people were always in charge, and these people saw some things that they didn't feel like they would either be heard or it wasn't the part of their personality style. So they just said, I'm going to let it go right now. And then later things could have gone differently.
That's a big, I mean, that I watched that film like 100 times, watching that space shuttle blow up when I was a kid, and that was hard. That was hard for me to see, and it's also something else for me to hear. Part of the reason for that, and it's hard. Yeah, but I get it though. It makes perfect sense, because when I started as a leader, the last thing I wanted was some conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing I received was some conflict. I had this person on the team that just did not appreciate my style of leadership. And I didn't know how to handle that. And for us leaders that are on here, and I know they're on here, that's going through that one problem child on the team that just wants to undermine you every chance they get. How do we deal with that constructively as leaders?
As leaders, so this person is on the team, on your team, but you're the, I hate to say it, but superior on the team that you're supervising.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So in one way, you have more of the power position over them. In another way, that could be seen as a dividing point. So kind of an us against them, or he's my boss, so I'm not going to have that rapport. I think building the relationship over time is going to be key to where you can develop a relationship, foster a relationship with them, and eventually they're going to need to want to make a change. They're going to have to see that it's worth doing it the way they're doing it. Kind of like a health issue. It's kind of like a health issue. It's like, okay, people know that you need to eat right and exercise. And you know that, and you're going on along, yeah, I should eat right, exercise. Well, all of a sudden, if you have a health consequence and you're like, oh, and the doctor says, okay, if you don't use exercise now, like, this is a serious problem. Well, all the pain of not changing is greater than the pain of changing. So this is something that, like, over time, you're going to work on them with it. This would be great for having some conflict coach training to learn how to build those bridges and make those that eventually they do come over. Now, to put on my real quick, sometimes people fit well in an organization and they need to be asked to leave. Decision. So that's another thing. So I guess I'm not going to say it's always going to work out and it's always going to be a win-win scenario. It may be, you know what, you're not fitting on this team. You know, maybe we can put, if you're in a large organization, it's like maybe we can put you somewhere else. Maybe you'll fit better on this other team, or if it's a smaller organization, or do that kind of thing. Just say, you know, it's been great. You're going to have to find somewhere else. So
Yeah,
tough conversation. Yes.
I was leaning more to the latter when I was going through it. I was like, I don't want to deal with this. Get this lady out of here. I don't want to deal with
Yeah, I
this.
get it. I do.
And it's true. I'm being totally 100 with you guys. I mean, when I was going through it, I was like, don't know this person from Adam. It's just day one. It was just a struggle, and I hadn't read Brené Brown yet about, you know, uh, 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 Dare to be a leader or something, Dare to lead.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't read
Yeah.
that. I didn't read. I hadn't read about being vulnerable. I had no training in that area, vulnerability. And so the first thing I was like after a couple of months, I was like, oh, I gotta get rid of this person, because now what happened was they started to affect the team, and they were campaigning amongst the team and getting people to go against me for some reason. I was like, oh no, oh no. We went to HR, and that's one of the things that I also want to follow up that question on. At what point do we get HR involved? Like before, because right now in the corporate world, it's like this, right? The corporate world, they're so afraid of being sued. That firing stuff, it's kind of hard to fire somebody right now in corporate, especially with a major company that I work for. It's very hard. They try to avoid that. That's the last resort. Because you being a lawyer, you understand the ramifications of that. And so they ask you to work it out, work it out, and then and if it gets too bad, and then you know you get HR involved. When is a good time? When is there a good time? Because I know it's not just on emotion. It's not just when I feel fed up. But when is a good time for both of us to just say, hey, you know what? We need somebody else. We need HR involved.
And when you say HR, I know different companies do it differently, and some companies HR is like bringing the hammer down. In other companies, it's like they're like the happiness people. They're like, oh, everybody's going to come to us and career plan and talk about their work-life balance. So there's a large, and then sometimes it's just people that do paperwork. You know, they onboard, offboard, and give you your insurance. So looking at it, if it was more towards the we want everybody to succeed and get along and how to make this a good, healthy environment, a workplace environment, I'd say keep those people in the loop all the time. For that type of mindset. And then if it is something that's really toxic or aggressive or arduous, you know, that was where you might hire a third party. You might hire somebody who's a conflict coach. Or if it's gone to the complaints and things like that, a mediator. So someone who actually takes that on as an employment case. So that would depend. If there's actually complaints, of course, you know, that's going to be HR. If they have that function of growing the organization and keeping the spirit of the organization alive, or just you know, this person is leaving, you need to start their paperwork or, you know, exit paperwork. Maybe getting in a consultant or coach with a team, and you wouldn't necessarily want to single out the person, but to do team development. Or even working, if it's safe, it's you and so you and George are always head to head. It's likely that George, it would be working with you, your strengths and your skills on how to do more effective communication with George. And changing one person in a relationship does change the relationship. It's not as quick or as effective as having both people changing the relationship, but people will start to notice what's going on. So as you change your demeanor and you change your methods of communication, things will change on the team overall.
I like that. I like that. I like that because I'm I can only control me.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, I can't control them. I mean, you make it sound so easy. Should organizations bring in consultants like conflict resolution consultants before a conflict happened, or should they wait to see how the company will fare and then bring somebody in to do damage control?
I am before. It's sort of like teaching people things that you're going to see happen. It's like seeing something in the, having somebody able to mitigate damages before the damages even get there. So like I'd say, like in a construction project, I'd say having somebody there who is a neutral or someone who's a mediator or even an attorney there at the very beginning, from the very design phase, before they start funding the project, before they start doing the design, somebody who, this may happen, I foresee this, or you know, you've contracted with Smith Plumbing and Jones Electrical, and they've had some issues before. So let's get ahead of that. Let's look at where we can make this more comfortable. Ahead of it is where you want to be. On the flip side, if you're not ahead of it and you don't really want to spend preventative dollars on it, and you just want to spend fix-it dollars, emergency, it's going to cost more, and you may not be able to select the professional you want. They may be booked up, tied up with another company or some other matter. But they will be able to come in, and depending upon how far along it is, you could probably do with some conflict coaching, some conflict training, some teamwork exercises, and like completely gone, and you've got somebody like the person that you mentioned for spoiling the team and turning people against you. You know, I mean, that might be a case where you need a mediator. You need somebody who comes in and you know that a potential consequence of these meetings or a potential outcome of these meetings is termination, which on the employee side is, you know, loss of your income, loss of your job, and then on the employer side, a potential legal action. So you'll need somebody to come in and say, look, this is what we're focusing on. Are you coming? Are you going? And how are we going to work this out? So that would usually be you'd hire an independent mediator for that situation.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm listening attentively because I'm going to bring this message back to my team. As a matter of fact, I'm going to run this session so they can watch it, because we do within the government we do have some conflicts, and and I'm definitely going to recommend you to my company, because I know that there's some issues that it's just not being resolved properly. I mean, it's being band-aided, where they're shifting people, moving them around, just to make, you know, one person happy, because that's how the government works for some reason. and it's still, people are still, there's infighting, there's fighting within the family, let's put it that way. And so they're just putting band-aids on it. And I'm like, what are we doing to mitigate or just remediate this issue, period. And they're like, well, nobody wants to do anything. I'm like, that's crazy. I mean, all these millions of dollars that we have, and we're doing nothing when it comes to human relations. And where this is coming from, this is fostered from the whole Zoom calls, people getting just tired of just working like 24/7, because there are times where you don't know whether you're at home or you're at work, because it's going on all the time. They will schedule meetings at 4:30. I mean, because they know that you're home. Meetings will last until 6 p.m. because I'm on those meetings, so I know. And people be emailing you at 7 o'clock, and so there's a lot of frustration there, and people are kind of pointing fingers and stuff like that. So those are the type of things that we're going through right now, and these are the type of things that we need to hear in the corporate space to kind of help us to deal with this. And so one of the things that I would like to ask you, if there's somebody out there that's in the corporate space and they're going through some frustration, and they're pointing fingers at other people, what are like 3 things that they can do to kind of just voice their opinion, even if it's not the culture, because our culture is not like that. It's not like, oh, you can say what you feel. We welcome it. Nah. no. There's retaliation, and it's unspoken, but it's there. And so
Yeah,
what is that person?
Yeah, I just
Yeah,
wanted to
what does that person do?
I wanted to normalize what you said before too. You were talking about the organization that just gets swept under the rug, or people just change positions. If somebody complains about somebody, then they just get transferred to another department. That is not unique to your organization. It happens in companies. It happens in government. It happens on sports teams. I mean, it's pretty much happens everywhere. We, as a society, are conflict avoidant, and so people in those kind of roles, they see something bubbling up, and they're like, "Oh, I got to fix. Let me just transfer this person." It's like, "Oh, this person's working on the team. Just grant the transfer and go. Just keep moving, and don't address the situation." So that's very common. I just wanted to normalize that for you. And as far as a person in an organization where they don't feel they have something to say, but they don't feel free to speak, is that was the question that you?
Yeah. They don't feel safe at all. Yeah, that safety factor.
Definitely building relationships with other people on the team. Find out who your supporters are, who your allies are, and building those kind of bonds and having community. Also have community outside of work. There's something that often gets missed in high stress professions, and I know who doesn't have a high stress profession these days, but something that gets missed is the community in the family life, and how you need to use that to support you and strengthen you, so that you're not so stressed about your relationships at work. So if that's your only outlet, and that's your only relationship, and you're not being supported by a family, community, a significant other, then all those relationships need support. They need like you said, cultivating. Sorry. Yes, so they need cultivating. They need feeding and water care for you, and to take that initiative, it's going to change you a lot, so that when you are in conflict, or when you're ready to speak and you're ready to say what you need to say, you're supported, and you're coming from a place of wholeness. You're coming from a place of wellness. You're not coming from a place that's just complaint. If someone's complaint, then it's like, they're just complaining. You can hear it in their voice. You can hear it. You can feel it in their being, like how they are Zoom call. You can feel it in their being if they're just going to complain. And as humans, we just kind of shut that off, and we don't give it the credence and the validity that they need. So if they tend to themselves and they're supported and they come in, it's kind of like going to a buffet when you're not hungry. If you go in and you're hungry and the well is dry and you're starving, you're not going to make good, healthy choices. But if you're coming in and you've taken care of yourself and you know this isn't the most important thing in my life. Like this, I want to talk about my job. I want it to be a better place. And I know that my spouse loves me, and I know that my community is there for me. So that well is filled. So you're able to bring your concerns and bring your situation from a really a much stronger place, and it has a much better chance of being actually heard.
Wow. I love that. That was powerful. That was powerful. I'm glad you shared that with us because I see Missy here. She says that I'm guilty of conflict avoidance. And there's some I see you, Lindy here says there will be conflict when we need understanding, especially in life, in the world. And she said a singer said that we need to be different and to do different things to get and never get tired of one another. And I guess sometimes we get tired of one another. I guess and I guess that's another form of conflict. Um, so yeah, that's all the questions today. One of the last thing I like to end this with this because you've given us so much value that it's crazy, and this to me this was like a coaching sessions for me personally. so,
Oh.
so there was a method to my madness, guys, with this interview. So I mean, this is for my team also, and we're gonna get some good coaching from this. The question that I have for you is a simple question where if you were to go back in time and have lunch with somebody that you admire that's already dead, who would that person be?
Oh gosh, like I have a list a mile long.
You can only pick one. Just
I can only
one.
pick one.
Just
Wow.
one.
Gosh. I'm gonna go with Winston Churchill.
Wow.
Yeah. I've read some of his work, and of course you hear so many stories about him, and
Yes.
I think just the way that he put things was so classic, not flourished. It's like a beautiful, like black and white script, like somebody writing something in calligraphy, and it's clear and it's not overdone.
Yeah.
So I think that's how I admire him. I probably would get mad at him pretty quickly. A different time and a different era. I guess kind of like when I was the young contractor talking to the army commander. I would probably say, you know what, I don't need to be in this meeting any longer than I have to. But it was a different time and a different era, and I get that. So yeah. But definitely be an
Winston
interesting
Churchill.
person to meet.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that'd be somebody to actually just to know, just to say, you know what? I mean, even if I just got one of his quirky one-liners or kind of thing that he says, like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, he's greatly respected. I'll tell you that much. I mean, Winston Churchill is greatly respected. I like his never, never, never speech. I mean, that was that was powerful. He's man that was straight straight up with you. You knew where you stood with him.
Exactly.
And yeah, and that's what I always well, I read about Winston Churchill. I mean, I watched some of the documentaries, but I read about him through Lee Iacocca because he was best friends with Lee Iacocca. If you didn't know that, and they used to hang out. They were buddies, and Lee Iacocca would just sit at his feet like a student because He said the same thing that you said. He said his one-liners are so powerful that this is where he learned, because
Mhm.
Lee Iacocca started with in and was it Lee Iacocca? I'm for, I think it wasn't Lee Iacocca. What is the name of that guy? He went into the shipping industry. He was from Greece. He was from Greece in the shipping industry. I forgot his name,
Mhm.
but a very very famous guy. He married John F. Kennedy's ex-wife. I mean, wife, widowed wife. Man, how can I forget this guy's name?
Lost you there.
Yeah.
I thought
No, I said he married John F.
the
Kennedy's
only
widow.
prominent Greek person right off the tip. That's what I was going to say. Aristotle Onassis.
Aristotle Onassis. Yeah.
Aristotle Onassis.
Yeah, Onassis. That was Winston Churchill's best friend.
Yeah,
And
it's like the most
and
prominent
and
Greek person I know right off
Onassis. Mhm.
the tip of my tongue is him. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. So he used to hang out with Winston Churchill, and he talks about Winston
Uh
Churchill a
oh.
lot in his book. So that was awesome. So Daya, I want to thank you for this privilege, man. Really thank you for dropping all those jewels on us. I mean, we are so much better on it for it, and I know that my team is going to thank you. And how can people get in contact with you, Daya?
My brand is called The Success Partner, so THE Success Partner. So you can find me online on Facebook, on LinkedIn, here on Instagram. Feel free to send me a message, and yeah, we'll set something up. I'm just as honored to be here, and I'm so glad that you received the value out of it. And really, anytime.
Thank you, Daya. And like she said, hit her up on the DM on Instagram, man, or in LinkedIn. Hit her up. Get some coaching. I mean, because I know a lot of us out there experience a lot of conflicts at work, at home, at wherever there's people around, we're experiencing that conflict. I mean, that's human nature. That's just the way it is. It's not a bad thing.
Yep.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing. You just
Mhm.
have to know how to play by the rules. And with that said, I'll see you guys next Wednesday. Again, thank you again. Thank you, Dare, for your
Thank
time.
you.
Really appreciate that. And I'll see you guys next week on Wednesday, 8 o'clock. And remember, I got my book coming out soon, Bulletproof Glass. I got that coming out, and I want you guys to be ready for that book. I want you guys to be ready to hit that buy button and get that book and read it and experience me like you've never experienced me before. And with that said, I am out of here. Peace.
Awesome.
Hey, I know that was kind of heavy, but if you want to see more leadership tips like this that could take your leadership to the next level, click on this video right here, right next to me. I think you'll enjoy it, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.